Well, joining me now is the former Foreign Secretary, Sir Malcolm Rifkind. Sir Malcolm, a very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. What's your take on this, I guess, minor spat, maybe it's a major spat between Zelensky and Western leaders about using weapons into Russian territory? Would the Storm Shadow missile be a game changer if he was able to use it? And how do you read whether the UK really does want them to be able to do so, and why at the moment they're not quite being permitted?
I think these are pretty sensitive issues. I think that the Ukrainians are already using a lot of British military equipment. They're doing incredibly well. They've put Putin into a position he never expected to be in. So I don't think the question of one further missile being used or not is going to make a significant difference. The Ukrainians are doing it very marvelously at the moment. All credit to them.
Do you think that this incursion into Russian territory is a game changer? And does Ukraine need to see it successfully continue for it to lead to...
Look, it's not by itself something that is going to defeat Russia, but it puts Putin into a position he never dreamt in his worst nightmares that he would be in, because the Ukrainians have shown the complete uselessness of the Russian armed forces. They have been able to occupy a substantial part of Russian territory. And Putin has always prided himself that the thing he does is provide security to Russia. Well, this war has been a disaster for him. The only change to NATO has been Sweden and Finland joining NATO, which they'd never done for almost 70 years. And now he finds parts of Russia occupied by the Ukrainians. Ukrainians are being smart. They're saying, we have no intention of staying here permanently. We don't want Russian territory. What we want them is to move out of Ukrainian territory. And that's exactly the line they should be taking.
Switching focus, Sir Malcolm, to the Middle East, there was some optimism late last week, early in the weekend, that a ceasefire deal between Israel and Gaza might be close. Our correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, was suggesting that optimism has abated a little bit over Saturday, Sunday and this morning. What's your take?
Well, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not optimistic. I think that for their own internal reasons, both Hamas and the Israelis, or Netanyahu, I should say specifically, are not that keen on a ceasefire at this moment. To some extent, the Israelis have a point that Hamas is insisting that for a ceasefire, the Israelis must agree that for a release of hostages, they will completely withdraw all their troops from Gaza. Now, you can't expect them to do that in the current context. Hamas is still saying if they got the opportunity to repeat the massacres, 1,000 people killed of October the 7th, they would do so again. Now, as long as that's their position, as long as they have some military capability left, that makes it much more difficult. But having said that, a ceasefire is what is required. And that is crucial, not just from the point of view of the hostages, which is tremendously important from a humanitarian point of view, but also reducing tension in the Middle East, which can have much more wider consequences.
Do you think the US election will lead to much greater pressure being applied by President Biden on Prime Minister Netanyahu to try and secure a deal or not?
No, I don't think the American election is going to be influenced by this. American elections are very rarely decided on foreign policy unless the United States has involved itself directly in a military conflict at the time. So that's the question of Harris or Trump will be decided essentially on domestic American considerations, particularly the economy.
In terms of the broader situation in the Middle East, I guess because of this focus on the Israel-Gaza ceasefire deal, there's been a little bit less pressure and focus on the broader tensions. Do you think they have abated at all, or are they as elevated as they have been?
Do you mean the border tensions between Israel and Lebanon, or do you mean elsewhere?
No, elsewhere, particularly including Iran.
Well, I think Iran is, of course, at the moment threatening to attack Israel because of the assassination of the Hamas leader in Tehran a few weeks ago. For the time being, the Iranians have to suspend their intentions because they don't want to be seen as destroying the prospect of a ceasefire or progress on Gaza because of a sudden attack on Israel. I think there is going to be some attack by Iran. They've committed themselves doing that. It'll be largely symbolic. It'll look dramatic in the sense of large numbers of missiles flying towards Israel, and most of them will be intercepted by the Israelis or by the United States and not do much damage to Israel. But that's part of an ongoing symbolism. But never underestimate the problems the Iranians face. Their economy is in a complete mess. They're 70% of Iranians are now saying they do not want the Ayatollahs to continue in power. They want a secular government, and they're not going to get that. But that means the Iranian Ayatollahs have more things on their plate than foreign policy towards Israel.
Switching focus, Sir Malcolm, just wanted to touch on the latest prison issues in the UK. I think I'm right in saying, as Secretary of State for Scotland, you were responsible for prisons in Scotland. What's
quite a long
take?
time ago, but do carry on.
Yes, no, I get that, but wisdom is built over time, and that's what we want to lean on this morning. Your wisdom on this area, and what is your take as the situation broadly at the moment? I mean, clearly, capacity is short. Is the only option in the short term to keep prisoners in police cells for longer and/or release prisoners early?
Well, the immediate priority has to be to ensure that those found guilty of rioting and the various disturbances that happened a couple of weeks ago are imprisoned. They are put in cells of some form or another. Now, frankly, I'm not going to lose any sleep. I don't think most people will lose any of sleep, whether they're in police cells, in prisons, or in some other secure accommodation. The important thing is that they should begin their punishment at this stage and not be relieved of it because of some wider question of overcrowding.
Do you know who you're going to back in the Tory leadership race yet?
Well, if I did, I wouldn't be sharing it with you.
Oh, there we go.
Well, no, I'm not a member of Parliament. The members of Parliament are the people who, at this stage in the competition, will narrow the field down to one or two, and then the party membership, of which I am a proud member, we will play our part, and what I think is still called a secret ballot.
Well, that might be the case. Do you think that the party's in safe hands regardless? Do you like all of the candidates?
Well, I think that the main priority at the moment is to choose a candidate, first of all, who will ensure internal unity within the party. The Conservative Party made a complete ass of itself by constant internal ructions, and Boris Johnson and Liz Truss are primarily responsible for that. Rishi Sunak did his best to restore the damage, but he didn't have the time to do it effectively. So we made a fool of ourselves. So that we have to restore our reputation as a pragmatic and united party, and not an ideological one. The Tory party is the oldest political party in the world, and it's survived for over 200 years and succeeded most of that time because of its basic pragmatism in the way that it deals with the issues facing the United Kingdom at any given moment. It's got to have a leader who symbolizes and represents that kind of consideration.
Sir Malcolm, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.